Okay, recording started. So, uh, hello everyone again. This is our next community call and the Ask Me Anything session about BrightID. Today we're going to focus on our social recovery, how to set that up. I think that the logic and the argument behind it, and also how to recover your accounts. Uh, I think it's a good idea to start asking Adam to go through the process and give us a short introduction to social recovery. And then we're going to be open for questions and start a conversation about our social recovery.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I think I'll start with just the motivations behind why we have social recovery, and then I'll call upon some other participants in here to show us either on their devices or using some presentations that they've made, how it actually works. We have some tutorials in our Gitbook and a Medium article on it. But the reason we have social recovery is because managing key pairs is hard. Managing cryptographic secrets is hard. You can ask anyone that's lost a wallet key how that feels. It's really hard when you are the only one that's in charge of that, and it leads some people to resort to things like less good options, such as custodial options where um, like you say, well, I'm going to let Coinbase handle all my funds for me or something like that, which has some benefits but also has some drawbacks. So but in BrightID, it's not so much about funds directly, but more about how you're going to use your social graph, how you're going to use your verification status, and so that can lead to receiving benefits and funds. But you start out with the ability to connect to other people, the ability to get verified, and that those operations are managed. You don't even see it. You don't even realize that this is happening, but they're managed through cryptographic keys that are protected on your device. And but there's another layer, because BrightID is inherently social. We have an advantage over other wallets. There are other wallets that have tried to do social recovery. And the challenge that they're having talked to some of these who have implemented this. I'm friends with the CTO of Zippy, for example, and they have social recovery. And he says, good luck trying to get adoption for that, because you've got to already have friends that you really trust that are using your system for social recovery to work. And it's hard to get that sort of mass adoption of any particular wallet. Whereas BrightID has an advantage is you're already making connections. The most important connections you make are the ones to the people that you know best. And then you're able to, those are the same people who are asserting that you're a verified human being. So you're able to use those same trusted connections to be the guardians of your unique human status. So they're the ones that are claiming that you have a unique human status. They're also the ones that can be the guardians of your unique human status. So I can choose family members, close friends, people that I really trust, that I know are not going to get together and steal my identity. And they're the people who vouch for my identity. And I set them up. I give them a special setting in BrightID that marks them as a recovery connection. And then if the biggest catastrophe you could imagine happens and I lose everything, all I have to do is start up my BrightID again on a new device. And one of the options is recover your BrightID. It'll go straight to the QR screen and ask for that to be scanned by those people that I've set up in the past. They choose from a list who they're helping to recover, and I get everything back. So this is in my opinion, in Vitalik's opinion, this is the best way to handle your keys. So this is what we use for BrightID. It works great. We're making it better all the time. And we want to even extend that to be useful for other applications as well, where you can use BrightID social recovery to recover your login to other Web3 or even Web2 applications. So we can talk about that later. I want to give someone a chance to demo some of the screens for social recovery for people who may have never seen it before. If you're new to BrightID, maybe you've never used it, you've never set it up. So let's go to Ashraf is going to share. He recently made a new tutorial on that. So let's let him share his screen. Are you able to share your screen, Ashraf? Okay. Let's make sure you're unmuted.
So this is the notification of when you get 6 or more connection on with your BrightID. So you can see this is a notification, and when you click the notification, you can select 3 or more recovery connection. And if you miss the notification, you can manually select the recovery connection like this. This is your home page, your BrightID. When you go to your connection list, you can see all the connection on your connection list, and you can see Ehsan, right? Ehsan is my friend, so I select already no, but now I want to select as a recovery connection, so I need to click their profile. So after that I can see like this connection level, and I can see, edit the connection level. When I click the pencil button, I can see like this. I can update the connection level, and I need to click just save. That's very easy. So anyone can easily make updated connection, as they already know, to recovery connection. And everyone need to remember that you need you select recovery connection those people who you are trust, like your family member and your friends. And don't forget about set your password, because when you log in your BrightID, you need to, if you skip first time the set password, you need to put your password now. When you click the menu button, then you can edit profile. Then when you go to the edit profile, you can select the password. And you can see like this. Suppose you lose your account, or you need to log in with another phone, when you can see like this. And when you click recovery BrightID, you have two options: a create a BrightID account, and another is recovery BrightID. When you click the BrightID, you can see like this. So your at least two trusted connection need to scan this QR code, so that you can log in your new device with your BrightID. So this is the process, very easy process. You know the BrightID is a centralized uh, network, so everyone connected with each other with a pair. So this is the main thing.
Great. Is that the end? I just want to make sure that I don't cut you off.
It's int. I need to update it the. It's just I made this randomly.
Okay, that was really good. That's the best demo that I've seen of social recovery yet. So congratulations on making that. It's very good.
Thank you.
There were a couple things that you shared in that demo that I want to go into a little more detail on. So you mentioned that there's a password. Oh, I guess you can stop sharing your screen now. I think we're done
Yeah.
looking at. Okay. So there was a password, and I just want to make sure, and I think we make it clear on the password screen, but I want to make it clear in this video too, that password does not control your BrightID. It's the social recovery that controls your BrightID. And when I say BrightID, I'm talking about the identifier and also the signing keys that go with it, being able to swap out those signing keys and have a new pair of, these are cryptographic keys that you control on your device that allow you to use BrightID. And so when you recover to a new device, you're going to set up a new pair of these cryptographic signing keys. And then it's your social recovery connections that that authorize that for you. And the BrightID nodes know they have the information to know that that's how you've previously set up your social recovery, and to know that that's legitimate. And they agree on that through blockchain consensus. So that is the important piece. Even if you forgot to set up a password, if you forgot to do that, you can still do that. But you selected your social recovery connections, you can still do it. What will happen though is you'll be in a state where it'll look like all of your connections are missing because you won't have any of the profile data. Because one thing that that BrightID doesn't do, and this is very important for privacy, is there is no, a BrightID node does not see anything on its graph. You showed that graph of dots. That's how it looks to a BrightID node. It's just a bunch of dots that are connected to each other. They don't see the profile information for those different dots, and that's a very good thing. So to enable that, we need to have people take some steps, an extra step, and right now it's just setting a password. Take an extra step to secure your list of connection profiles that you've been building up, the people that you've been connecting to. And if you forgot to do that and you didn't set up a password, it's all is not lost. You can still continue to use your BrightID. As you make those connections again, you'll start to get the profile data back from those connections. And in fact, we also have a method that bootstraps it a little bit, where the first few connections that you make after you're recovered, you'll pull some of the profiles that they've collected and be able to jumpstart your profile, your connection list a little more. But if you did set that password, then what you get is your own private encrypted backup that's stored in the cloud. And that is, you get that back. You will instantly get all your connections back, and it'll be like nothing happened. You can just start using your BrightID again. I'll mention a couple things about security, a couple security features about the social recovery. So let's think about a specific attack. Let's think about someone steals my phone. Can they just delete my, and let's say they get through the basic phone security, so now they're in my phone and they're using BrightID. Can they just delete my social recovery connections and pick some new ones and take over my BrightID permanently? To protect against this attack, what we've done is we've set up a cooldown period for recovery operations, so that they take, I believe the nodes have it set to a week right now, but so it takes a week for any changes to recovery connections to take effect. So initially, when you set up your recovery connections, that's not the case. If you just set up a brand new BrightID and then you immediately lose it, you can recover it if you've gone through social recovery. And that's fine, because if you quickly set it up, you should be able to quickly recover. But if you've been using your BrightID for a long time and then you get it stolen, there needs to be a period of time where you're able to react to that before an attacker can react to it. Or if you get blackmailed, bribed, kidnapped, all sorts of things like that. We want to have this period where where you have a chance to be faster than the attackers, and get and use the people that you trust to recover your social recovery we feel a week is long enough for someone to realize that they've been attacked and that their BrightID is stolen. And then during that week period, the attackers cannot do anything. Even if they have your BrightID under their control, they can't make those changes, and your social recovery people can rescue you, basically. That's what they're there for. So so that's why that exists. And I think we've added, or I think we've already added some notifications that that help people understand these concepts of what is the password actually doing, and how are of what if you run into the cooldown period, you know, how long is your recovery connection in that cooldown period or not. So we give some helpful tips in the mobile application to show you what's going on exactly. Let me see if there's any like really important topics before we can just open up for questions. So we're working on we've been talking with 3box. Since social recovery is kind of connected with the profiles and the profile data, and we've talked about, oh, those are encrypted. We're talking with 3box, which is now 3box Labs, and also Ceramic, which is this decentralized document store that the same people plus other people are working on. It supports 3box. So it's these decentralized profiles. We want to be able to use that as a piece for encrypting. I mean, we want to offer lots of different options for both recovery of your BrightID and recovery of your profile information. We want social recovery to be the most authoritative, so that, let's say that you used another device as a backup, which is fine. That should be allowed in BrightID. We have the back end pieces for that ready, but we don't have any front end implementation of that. But that's fine to back up your BrightID that way. But social recovery is the most authoritative. It will take precedence over that. So if an attacker steals one of your devices or something, you can override that through social recovery. But back to the 3box point, what I wanted to say is that we want to be able to use Ceramic as a user-controlled, decentralized way that doesn't rely on a Google or even a BrightID, because right now our cloud backup is using BrightID as the cloud provider, which is not what we wanted to. We never wanted to get into that. We didn't, you know, we don't want to be hosting an encrypted data store of a bunch of profiles. That's not what BrightID wants to be doing. It's a stopgap. But Ceramic is going to be our next, so our much better solution, where it's this data store that you're in control of, you have the keys to, and so when you're recovering your BrightID connection list, you get to do that through Ceramic, and there's no company that's, you know, like Google can't decide they're going to blackmail you or something, or whatever. You're in control of this. So so yeah, I think those are the basic high level topics, and maybe we can open up for questions now. And Paslar, do you want to be in charge of fielding the questions, and I can answer them, or whoever else is here that can answer them can do the answering.
Yes, I just want to mention how the process of recovering works for the folks who are your recovery connections, because it was a puzzle piece that was missing in my mind. Like, my question was always, and I always used to talk to Maddie about this, that suppose I have mutual recovery connections with Maddie. He has the same recovery connections that I have. And then he shows his recovery code to those two people. I show them to those two. I show mine to those people as well. And then how does the system understand that this is my profile and this is Maddie's profile? And then I got to understand that, okay, those people are selecting which profile they are helping to recover. And that's where it makes perfect sense. I can see that, but The part that I'm still kind of confused about is that, okay, in the past we used to select recovery connections and put in a password. Now we changed that. Now I just have my recovery connections and I ask for their help, and then that's it. There's no password request, right?
Yeah, so those actions don't have to happen at the same time. But yes, I would recommend setting a password. And what that allows you to do is have access to your encryption. The password is pretty safe. You don't have to, even if you pick a stupid password, unless it's like really stupid, like password or something, it's pretty safe because these are stored on the cloud. To even have the address of where they're stored on the cloud, you have to know the password. And so it's really slows down something like a dictionary attack. And so just picking a password to back up your profile data is good. And something else, I already said this, but if someone does guess your password, or you leak your password or something like that, the worst thing that can happen is someone gets to see all your connections. So it kind of it sort of, I guess, reveals maybe more than you want to reveal about you and your connections. So that's the danger. That's the risk of it. It doesn't allow them to take over your BrightID. Those are we put them together because they're both they both have to do with account recovery in some ways, but it's important to realize that the social recovery of being able to use your BrightID again versus the recovery of the profiles you've collected in your connection list are separate.
I see. And my other question, I'm sorry if I'm taking the time to ask questions myself. This is going to be my final question, and then I'm going to hand it over to others. But by having social recovery, we're not uploading my profile data anywhere on the internet and being encrypted in the traditional way. So when I recover my account, where is that data coming from? Where is my connection list coming from? Where is the pictures of my connections coming from?
Yeah. So with the profile backup, it's coming right now. It's coming from BrightID's cloud storage, and that's not what that's just our short-term solution. We never wanted to be in the business of providing cloud storage, especially as BrightID scales to millions of users. We don't want to become Google. Like I always tell people, we don't want to become Facebook. Definitely don't want to do that. We don't want to become Google. So yes, we are kind of opposed to what they've been doing recently. So we want to get out of that, and we're looking at decentralized, user-controlled and user-owned solutions like Ceramic, where there is no company acting as a middleman. There's no BrightID, or there's no Google. It's just you and your data on a decentralized network, and you get to that comes with some. It comes with a lot of freedom. It also comes with responsibility. With that freedom comes responsibility. You need to manage your password, or in the case of, I mean, you can look at. You need to manage your secrets yourself. And I think as Ceramic and identity wallets and identity profiles become more common, people will get used to managing that. And in social recovery can, we could act, so right now they're not exactly linked, but we could think about doing that. Like you could say, okay, it could be like almost this circular thing where you say, okay, I've got my identity wallet that controls my profiles that I've collected from other people and my contact list. And then I've got my BrightID social recovery. And if I lose access to my identity wallet that has my profiles in it, I can use my BrightID to recover my identity wallet to recover my profiles. So it can be, they can all be connected that way. That's not, that circle hasn't been completed yet, but that's interesting. And so, yeah, in that way, they could be connected. But yes, ideally, you're in control of your data. That's what we want with BrightID. Right now, when you make a connection with someone, you're sending your profile information to them directly. Yes, there's some magic happening with internet routing, and we provide some of that utility to help route that connection to the other person. But you know, you can think of it as being just you and that other person. You're sharing with them, and yeah, that's the way we want it to be. We want the users to be completely in control.
That circle that you just described was really interesting to me, because it reminds me of how in a traditional banking system, if I forget my username and password to control my account, I go there with my ID card and say, this is really me. And then they provide me access to my accounts again. And that's how BrightID can come in that process.
Yeah, so I would really love it if these authorities that issue credentials, if they accept BrightID social recovery as a method to prove recovery of your credentials. So if you say, oh man, I lost the ability to share those credentials anymore, I need my credentials reissued. I lost access to my, if we think about W3C standards that are emerging right now, I lost access to my DID document that has these credentials in it, and so BrightID should be able to, BrightID social recovery should be able to be a recovery method within that DID document that allows you to say, okay, this is a way that I can get those credentials back that belong to me, that I'm in control of. So in that way, you don't need to go back to the bank and say, oops, I lost my password. You just use your social recovery and you get everything back, including credentials that were issued by that bank. That's a much better way to handle things.
Mm. Wow. Oh, we get to see Maddie.
I want to add another point, just like Adam described that. It's more interesting that you trust and rely on your trusted connections instead of the banks for recovering access to lost things. So if, for example, two or three trusted connections say that these new credentials belong to the same person, the system, the decentralized network system, can accept the new keepers, that can accept that new keepers belong to the same person. So I think our friends are more reliable to be trusted for recovering our accounts than banks. They can easily ban us and limit our access to our data or our accounts, but our friends will never do that.
Especially when we select them, like we assign these people that I trust these people with my credentials somewhere.
Yes, and do that in a decentralized way. So, for example, one of them cannot do anything alone. They should collude together to be able to attack our account.
Oops, sorry. Do we see any questions, Paslar?
Not so far. I didn't see anything in the chat, but we are open for questions if anyone wants to learn more or has any question in mind about the social recovery process.
Yeah, and let's also make sure, because I know that you have a meeting after this, let's make sure that we get enough time to do a group connection in here on BrightID.
Yes, if we don't see any questions, we can do a group connection together.
Yep.
So cool. Oh, Maddie wants to, please.
یه نکته دیگه میخواستم اضافه کنم، پاسل اگه زحمت ترجمهش بکشید.
He wants me to translate. It's fine.
یه نکته که فکر می‌کنم جا افتاد اینه که الان سوشال ریکاوری برایت آیدی اینجوری کار میکنه که اگر شما بکاپی نداشته باشید، وقتی اکانت رو ریکاور میکنید، تمام اینجوری نیست که هیچ کدوم از اطلاعات کانکشناتون برنگرده. یه درصد بالایی از کانکشناتون که میوشال هست با ریکاوری کانکشناتون، اینا الان برمیگرده و ریکاور میشه. هیچ بکاپی، کلود بکاپی استفاده کرده باشید.
Maddie says with the, and it's a good point, Maddie says with the social recovery that we have designed in BrightID, without having the cloud backup, when you recover your account with your recovery connections, a big part of your profile can be recovered on your device using the information that you have stored on your recovery connections list. Like you have mutual connections there, you have your name and your picture there that can be recovered using those two recovery connections that you have.
Yeah, and the reason why we did that, we wanted to make it so that you don't get blocked from using BrightID if you forgot your password, because forgetting a password or losing access to a key, those are common things that people do, and so we need to not to be a blocker, and that's why one of the reasons why social recovery is so great is because it's a very natural way to have the most trustworthy people be able to recover for you. And yeah, if you don't, I mean, like right now, there's certain things where in my life where I realize, okay, this is really important, and they made me have a password. So I'm going to take that password, I'm going to share it with a couple other people. So I kind of like rigged my own not so great social recovery for that account because it doesn't have something like the nice social recovery that BrightID has. But this is like a really good way if you really need to make sure that you don't lose access to something. It's really the best way. And so we realized that with any other method we use, so if we're encrypting the profile data you've collected, we know people are going to lose passwords. So that's why we have this other way for you to then work around it if you do forget that password. We know it's going to happen. And I really hope that we can get to that circle that I talked about where you can actually use your social recovery to reopen your identity wallet and then use your identity wallet to get your profile back. So that way, if you lost your, so let's say you have your identity wallet app and you have your BrightID app, if you just lose access to BrightID, you can use your identity wallet to get your profiles back. That's one nice thing. If you just lose access to your identity wallet, you can use BrightID social recovery to get that back. If you lose access to everything, you can still use BrightID social recovery to get everything back. And I think that that's the ideal situation that we eventually want to get to.
Does anyone have any other questions? Otherwise, we can start a group connection together. Cool. So for the folks who, and let me stop recording before we start making connections, because that would be better. And now we have, do you want to stop